You know what's weird? There's a moment in almost everyone's financial life that almost nobody talks about. It's not when you make six figures. It's not when you buy your first house. It's definitely not when you become a millionaire. It's much earlier. One day you open your banking app and instead of immediately closing it because you're scared of what you'll see, you feel calm. You stop wondering whether buying lunch today will ruin your budget. A surprise expense no longer feels like the end of the world. For the first time, money stops controlling every decision you make. For millions of people, that moment happens at roughly one number. $20,000. Not because $20,000 makes you rich, it doesn't, but because it completely changes the way your brain, your decisions, and eventually your future work. And once you understand why, you'll realize that this milestone is far more important than almost any salary increase. Because building wealth isn't just about making more money. It's about reaching the point where your money finally starts working for you. Imagine trying to push an enormous boulder uphill. At first, it barely moves. Every inch takes everything you've got. You're exhausted. You wonder if it's even worth trying, but eventually, the boulder reaches the top, and suddenly, gravity changes sides. Now the hill is helping you. Instead of fighting momentum, momentum starts fighting for you. That's exactly what your financial life looks like. The hardest part isn't becoming wealthy. The hardest part is escaping survival mode. And for many people, that escape happens somewhere around $20,000 in savings and investments. Here's why. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, your brain isn't thinking about wealth. It's thinking about survival. Can I pay rent? What if my car breaks down? What if I lose my job? Should I skip the dentist again? Researchers studying scarcity have found that financial stress consumes mental bandwidth. It's similar to having dozens of browser tabs open at the same time. Your brain slows down because it's constantly handling emergencies. When every paycheck already has a job before it arrives, there's no room to think about the future. You become reactive instead of strategic. You accept jobs you hate because you can't risk unemployment. You stay in toxic workplaces because quitting feels impossible. You delay learning new skills because every spare hour is spent worrying about bills. It's incredibly difficult to build wealth when your brain is busy trying to survive another month. But then something fascinating happens. You build a real emergency fund. Not a few $100s, not enough for one flat tire, enough to breathe, enough to know that if life punches you in the face tomorrow, you're probably going to be okay. Financial institutions like Vanguard have found that even relatively modest emergency savings are associated with significantly higher financial well-being. Not because the money itself changes your life, but because uncertainty starts disappearing. And uncertainty is expensive. It costs sleep. It costs confidence. It costs better decisions. Money can't buy happiness, but it can absolutely buy peace of mind. And peace of mind changes everything. Instead of asking, how do I survive until Friday? You start asking, how do I make my money grow? That single shift separates surviving from building wealth. Now let's talk about the math, because this is where things get really interesting. Suppose you save $1,000 every month. You invest consistently. Nothing fancy. Just low-cost diversified index funds earning roughly the long-term average stock market return. Reaching your first $20,000 feels painfully slow. Almost every dollar came directly from you. Every deposit required discipline. Every contribution meant saying no to something else. But then your money quietly joins the team. Now your investments begin generating returns of their own. Those returns generate more returns. And little by little, your savings stop acting like employees and start acting like co-workers. The second $20,000 arrives faster than the first. The third arrives faster still. You didn't suddenly become smarter. You didn't find secret investments. You didn't discover a billionaire-only strategy. The rules never changed. The numbers did. Compound interest is one of the few forces in life that becomes stronger the longer you wait. At first it feels invisible. Later it feels unstoppable. Think about this. An 8% annual return on $2,000 earns about $160. Nice. You'll probably spend that on groceries. But an 8% return on $20,000 earns $1,600. Now, your investments are paying for vacations, helping fund retirement, covering unexpected expenses. Eventually, those returns become larger than your own contributions. That's when wealth starts feeling real. Here's something almost nobody tells you. Saving $20,000 proves something far more valuable than having $20,000. It proves you've become someone capable of building wealth. Think about what it actually takes. You had to consistently spend less than you earned. You resisted impulse purchases. You ignored lifestyle inflation. You kept going when progress felt painfully slow. Most people underestimate how powerful that identity change really is. Before, you were trying to save money. Now, you're someone who saves money. Those sound almost identical. They're not. Psychologists have shown that people are far more likely to stick with behaviors that match their identity. Someone who says, I exercise is much more likely to keep exercising than someone who says, I'm I'm trying to work out. Money works the same way. Once you've built $20,000, you stop wondering whether you're financially responsible. You've already proven it. That confidence starts affecting every future decision, and that's incredibly valuable. Here's another change most people never notice. Your attention shifts. When you're broke, every tiny purchase feels enormous. Should I buy the generic cereal? Can I justify this coffee? Maybe I shouldn't order dessert. Every dollar feels like life or death. But once you build a solid financial foundation, you realize something surprising. The little expenses were never the main problem. The big ones are where you live, what you drive, how much you earn, how much you save, your investment strategy. Those decisions are worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Not whether you bought guacamole. Financially successful people don't necessarily obsess over small purchases. They obsess over big decisions because that's where the real money lives. Now let's talk about something even more powerful: freedom. $20,000 doesn't just buy financial security, it buys options. Imagine your boss becomes unbearable. 6 months ago, you had no choice. Smile, say yes, keep your head down. You needed every paycheck. Now you can actually walk away. That changes everything. Ironically, the people most capable of quitting usually don't need to, because confidence changes how people treat you. You negotiate better, you ask for raises, you volunteer for bigger opportunities, you're no longer making decisions out of fear, and people notice. Confidence tends to create opportunity. Opportunity tends to create income. Income builds more savings. Savings create even more confidence. It's a positive feedback loop. But here's the mistake that traps a lot of people. They finally reach $20,000 and immediately spend it. A luxury SUV, an expensive vacation, a giant house with giant monthly payments, because after years of sacrifice, they feel like they've earned it. Honestly, they probably have, but that doesn't mean it's the right move. That $20,000 isn't the finish line. It's the launch pad. It's the first employee you'll ever hire that never sleeps, never complains, and works every single day of your life. Don't fire it. Keep it invested. Let it grow. Speaking of expensive mistakes, let's talk about cars, because this one hurts. The average new car loses roughly 20% of its value during the first year alone. Imagine investing $30,000 and watching $6,000 disappear almost immediately. Nobody would celebrate that investment, yet people do it every day. Now there's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying nice cars. If that's what truly matters to you, go for it. But understand the trade-off. Money spent today isn't just money gone today. It's future money that never had the chance to grow. $30,000 invested over a few decades can become several times larger. Opportunity cost is invisible. That's why people ignore it. You don't see the future wealth you gave up. You only see the shiny new car sitting in your driveway. The wealthiest people often think differently. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this monthly payment?" they ask, "What is this purchase costing future me?" That single question changes almost everything. Housing, cars, vacations, subscriptions, education. Every dollar starts competing against your future freedom. And strangely enough, once you begin thinking this way, you often realize you don't actually want as much stuff as you thought you did. Not because you've become cheap, because you've become intentional. Money becomes a tool instead of a scorecard. And that's the biggest lesson of all. $20,000 won't make you rich. It won't put you on the cover of Forbes. It won't buy yachts, private islands, or courtside seats at the NBA Finals. What it gives you is something far more valuable: breathing room, confidence, options, a brain that's finally free to think beyond next month's bills. A foundation strong enough for compound interest to finally start doing what it's famous for. Most people spend their entire lives chasing higher incomes, when what they really need is a stronger foundation. Because income can disappear overnight. Habits usually don't. So if you're still working toward that first $20,000, don't get discouraged. The beginning is supposed to feel slow. That's how every snowball starts. Tiny, almost disappointing, until one day it's rolling downhill faster than you ever thought possible. And when that day comes, you'll realize something. The first $20,000 was never the hardest because of the money. It was the hardest because it transformed you into the kind of person capable of building the next 200,000, the next million, and every milestone after that. That's why $20,000 isn't just a number. It's the point where survival starts becoming freedom. And that might be the best investment you'll ever make. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.